Hello and welcome to the Organic Wine Podcast. I'm Adam Huss coming to you from Los Angeles, California. Thank you for listening, and a huge thank you to our Patreon subscribers. Your support makes this podcast possible in practical, tangible ways, but also in really big, intangible ways that are just as important. And I couldn't do it without you, so thank you. If you would like to support this podcast by subscribing to our Patreon, that link will be in the show notes and on the support page at organicwinepodcast.com. Now, for some episodes, I suggest grabbing a pen and notepad to jot down our guests' deep technical insights into viticulture and enology. For this episode, however, I suggest grabbing a glass of wine or smoking something relaxing, and prepare to go on a magical and at times hilarious journey to a special place on Earth. If you're operating machinery, driving, or responsible for children at the moment, skip the mind-altering substances and just, pretend. Your guide on this journey is Jess Hopwood, and she has a lot of experience spoiling voyagers with amazing trips. She has been, among other things, a flight attendant on private jets, a butler on luxury yachts, and now runs farm-to-glass wine tours in the Okanagan Valley of British Columbia. The Okanagan is that special place on Earth, the furthest north location on the planet with a hot Mediterranean climate. The Okanagan centers on a lake that runs 81 miles north to south and is surrounded by beautiful towns, towering mountains, Mediterranean blue lakes, and wine. I have to admit, I was woefully ignorant of this area, but it has jumped to the top of my list of wine regions to visit, thanks to Jess. Jess guides us through the climate, the scenery, the history, and some of the amazing people, farming, and wines that can be found in the Okanagan. This is by no means an exhaustive accounting of producers who are doing great farming and making amazing fermentations. The Okanagan is a large and diverse region with much more to be discovered, but I think you'll be enchanted by even this short day trip. Jess visited me on a recent trip to Los Angeles and brought some unique wines from the Naramata subregion of the Okanagan. And we discussed these wines and their producers, and the beauty of this place where vines grow on benchland cliffs over the lake, and the land was named for a famous smile. The Okanagan is at the forefront of organic or better agriculture in Canada, and Jess focuses on small local producers who are doing this great farming. At the end of the day, before a final and refreshing dip in the lake, Jess takes us on a quick trip up the Similkameen, a river valley with sheer mountain walls that flows into the Okanagan and is known as the organic capital of Canada. So pour something adventurous and or light something inspiring and join me on this magical journey with Jess Hopwood.
Thought we were recording.
Now we are. Did you see the countdown? You're on.
Okay.
So I'm going to just
I like
say
that
welcome.
though, because like the beginning ones are just the ones to like get the jitters out anyway. So
I'm so glad you're jittery. That's very cool. I get a little jittery
oh,
too.
do you?
I think,
You stop it. You do not.
well, I mean, normally I do, but since both of us are working in exhaustion states, I like they're a little less jittery. No, I do. I care about every conversation. I want to think about good questions to ask people, and yeah, just think, like I try. I mean, for me, it's like I want to talk to people that I want to talk to anyway. So, but then I want it to be, there's this formal aspect of it, so that I want to
Of course.
ask questions that will be useful and entertaining and educational for
Educational.
everyone listening. Inspirational, educational,
Inspirational. Yeah.
edifying. Yeah.
I
So,
heard.
a
I
lot,
heard
a little
someone
pressure.
explain at times, and the way they ran their business, and I find a lot of comparison to it that like it's civilized elegance without being stuffy. I want to be proper and educational, but like none of the stuffiness, none of the snobbiness, just kind of like welcoming, inviting, and kindness, kind of like at all times, inquisitive and curious.
Yeah, I do know. Yes, I think I know. I mean, I
You
should.
think you know. I mean, I've been listening to you for like a few years now, and I see a lot of similarities in our values. And it was one of the reasons why I reached out when we decided to come down for a little like pre-season vacation getaway, because I see your kindness and I've seen your journey as you've grown as a person. with this podcast and your own winery. And you do really great things. And I kind of have this motto that, like, awesome finds awesome. And I think you're doing great things. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to connect with you last month and kind of show you a little slice of what I think is heaven, which is our wine country in the Okanagan Valley and Smokeland Valley.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're convincing me for sure.
What did
And
you say? You said your closest you've ever been to BC is Bellingham?
Bellingham. Yeah. Yeah, I lived out of my car for a few months and traveled up the west coast and actually like did some day labor sanding logs in Bellingham, um, just to make some money because I was like, I had no money, so I just had to like work from town to town, so to speak, living out of my car. And I mean, this is also tied to some of the magical connection that I have to that area. Was like I mean, I was just, it was my first experience of an old growth forest. I just randomly, you're just driving around and went to this place that we just, I don't know, I was with a friend and pulled over. I don't know if there was like a sign for it or something like that, but we were like, just, wanted to take a hike, and maybe it was on a map or something like that, but it was, somewhere between Bellingham and Baker, Mount Baker, and just out in the forest. And we went into this place, and it was like suddenly there was like mist everywhere. It was like you're just driving along, and it's like you're driving through the forest, and then it was like we entered another realm. It was crazy. I mean, there was like
Yeah.
moss, these massive trees, mist was like floating around. I was like, was really expecting to see Leprechaun like run through the shadows. And
Does the Wenatchee Forest sound familiar? Wenatchee, because the
that
Wenatchee
does sound
Forest,
familiar. Yeah. And
yes.
it's something that was preserved from logging because of like a study, like a college study that was done years ago, or, or maybe it's an ongoing study, but it was like, hey, we just want to study this, like what, and, the ecology of, old growth forest is. And so they prevent, luckily the college, I don't know, either bought it or got permission, the government. And so it wasn't logged. So I don't know if that's the Wenatchee, but, it was like, it wasn't huge. It was just a little, maybe, I don't know how many acres, but we hiked around for a while and ran into somebody who was foraging for mushrooms, and they're called angel's wings, these mushrooms, and they only grow on Douglas firs that have been dead for between 400 and 600 years or something like that, or 200 and
Wow.
600 years. So it was like we had to look for these huge old logs that were, sort of partially decaying, and then these angel wings were coming out, and we had a dinner of angel wing.
That sounds magical.
It was really amazing. It was truly amazing. Yeah. And
Well,
just
we have
being,
a
I
lot of
mean,
forests like that up here in
yeah,
British Columbia as well. And in fact, every highway is connected basically by old growth, new growth. There is a lot of unfortunate logging that does happen in our province, but
yeah.
it is it's a beautiful thing. As
Well,
often
you
as
were
I
talking
drive
about the
that
lakes
highway,
too.
the lakes are amazing. It's just, we're like a little
Turquoise
wonderland of
Mediterranean
paradise.
lakes.
Yes, there's a lot of, there's quite a few like silty clay lakes kind of in like little hidden pockets all throughout um, the province. And like one of them, quite often, if I'm commuting from Vancouver to the Okanagan, there's one just off of the 97 connector called Kentucky Aline, and it's so turquoise blue. It's painfully beautiful, and it's never that busy. It's a provincial campsite, and so quite often I will just like run in, go for a swim, cool off, get changed, get back in the car, and like continue on. And there are lakes like
Mm,
that all over the place. And
yeah,
the region where I do my business in is just a land of lakes. There's, Okanagan Lake is kind of like the heart of the area,
yeah.
our wine growing region. And I think well, I have it in miles for you so that you can have an idea of what it
Yeah,
is.
yeah.
What,
It's
where did I put
g-
it?
well, and while you're finding that, let me orient people. So you're Jess Hopwood. You run Farm to Glass wine tours,
That's
and you
me.
and the Farm to Glass Wine Tours is your tour company, wine tour company that you are operating in and around the Okanagan Valley, and which is in Canada, just north of Seattle and east of Vancouver, the southwest corner of Canada. And it's a unique spot in that I think it's probably climatically one of the furthest north on the planet regions that still has a hot Mediterranean climate, like
That
summer,
is
like the
correct.
right. And so you're behind, there's like a cascade range that creates this rain shadow from those cold northern Vancouver rainy winds. And then before the big mountains that I don't even know what they're called, maybe further, like continuation of the Rockies, that create the next big range, that where all the Alberta ski mountains are, like Banff and things like that, if anybody knows about those. But it's like this beautiful valley that sort of emulates like the Willamette Valley or the California Central Valley, like between the coastal range and the interior range of mountains. And in the center of that, there's this big, beautiful lake that is how many miles long?
84 miles.
Wow. So
It's massive and
and along
it's
that lake, there's
wide.
all these beautiful little towns that are almost like little. I mean, they're like, honestly, like I was looking at pictures and maps, and I was like, every one of these is like a little Martha's Vineyard, like this little, port town, but on a lake instead of an ocean, and like, um, and then there's like vineyards on the cliffs, on the benches next to the lake and places, and I mean, it just looks stunningly beautiful. It looks incredible.
I know. And it's hugged and it's not just vineyards. We have apples and peaches and apricots and cherries. So it's like you'll drive down like a few miles down the road and you'll see like everything just right now, especially because everything's blossoming. It's so beautiful. I can't express how no matter how many often days I do these tours and I'm up in the region, every day you're just like looking and you can't wipe the smile off your face of how beautiful it is there.
Mm. Now, you also say on your website that it is a leader in organic farming. Do you have any data to back that up?
Well, so we actually do have I think it's over 40 either wineries or vineyards that are either certified organic vineyards or organic wineries in our province. And
Wow.
I do believe that that trajectory is actually going to be increasing a lot in the coming years. We have great climate for organic farming. That rain
Yeah.
shadow is a dream, and quite often it's very dry. We can go a very long time without a single drop of rain.
Right. Plus
And
that latitude gives you probably a short spring as well, because you have these very cold spells in the winter because of your latitude, but then it heats up pretty quick, right? Like you're right now, it's May, and you're talking you might get 100 degrees this week.
we are definitely not so much in the northern part in in Lake Country or in Kelowna, but a little bit further south in like Oliver and the Soyuz closer to the US border. Yeah, it's gonna hit 100 for sure.
Which is about 38 C.
38 degrees Celsius for us Canadians.
Yeah. That's amazing. I mean, that's
Yeah,
scary in a way too, but that definitely seems like a optimal place for very, yeah, for like suppression of mildew and things like that.
yes. And it, as wineries tend to like, or grapes grow between like the 30th and 50th parallel. And in fact, our most northern winery in the Okanagan is actually called 50th Parallel Winery because it's just right at the very tip. So
Wow. It's so you say there's like 40 that are organic winery vineyard. How many vineyards are there? How many wineries are there in the area?
we have in our province 335 grape wineries, and
Okay.
that is probably for acreage. I think total right now, not everything. I haven't seen an update in the last couple of years, but I think we're close to about 13,000 acres total in our province,
Wow.
and 84% of that. So predominantly, most of that is in the Okanagan Valley. And then the next largest grape growing region is just kind of like south into the west in this really beautiful valley called the Similkameen Valley, which accounts for about 6% of all of our grape growing in our beautiful British Columbia.
Wow. And
Yeah,
what do you
it's
go
ask
ahead?
away. What's the question? You ask good questions.
Well, have you always been in this area? Did you grow up in this area?
No, I actually grew up on Vancouver Island in a really small town called Port Alberni. I left it as soon as I could, as many of us do in that small town, and I moved to the West Coast to a small town called Ucluelet just to work in the service industry and surf. Because in small towns like that, it's right on the west coast of Vancouver Island and very tiny. The population at the time was about 1,500 people, a really high tourism industry there. Whale watching, lakes, uh, hiking, you name it, everything is there.
Yeah, you're out
And
there.
so I,
I'm
yeah,
looking on a map.
have you heard of
Euclid.
Tofino? Tofino's more well
Yeah, I
known,
have
and it
heard of
has,
Tofino.
yeah.
Yeah.
So Euclid's like the little sister town, but you know, it's boomed a lot since I left because this was about 20 years ago. But basically, you worked in the service industry, and then in your free time, you surfed. So I did that for a couple of years, and then I wanted to go move away to somewhere tropical where I could learn how to, well, not learn. Well, I wasn't very good surfer, to be honest. So yeah, we can say still keep on learning. I wanted to go surf some more, and then my options were either to go to Hawaii or go to Mexico. I ended up choosing to go to Mexico, and I was going to go for 6 months, and then 6 months turned into 7 years, and
Wow,
I
what
lived
part?
in Puerto Vallarta,
Oh, wow.
and I ended up working in a ecotourism company for the majority of my years down there, and did a little bit of everything from working on boat tours, teaching scuba diving. I worked with a rescued sea lion down there, and then I eventually settled in and worked in the online sales department and worked with cruise ship coordinations and really just had an amazing experience of my 20s living in a beautiful place like Puerto Vallarta. It was it's like my second home, basically.
Yeah, you really did it right. That sounds amazing.
I didn't do much surfing in the end, ironically, but I had a really great time.
It's like it's
Yeah,
funny how these early experiences and that are really intense in various ways inform and shape where you end up and in strange ways. And I mean, just in this little thing that what you were saying made me think of is your little slogan and motto on Farm to Glass wine tours, which is "Be kind, drink wine," which I love. And you do seem to have this sense of the importance of kindness in what you do and focusing on the positive things that are the beauties that you get to show people too, and the good farming that you can focus on as opposed to the people that maybe aren't doing such good farm. But yeah, I similarly take that approach too. It's sort of like I don't want to spend my whole time just talking about how how bad things are. I want to be like, you know what? We all know that. So let's talk about the people that are doing amazing stuff, because
exactly.
that's where we can head towards, we can head towards that. So anyway, thank you. Well, I think we've laid a little bit of the groundwork here for for this beautiful area.
Yeah,
What is who are some I mean, okay, well, so you very kindly got some folks from there to bring some wine. I don't know if you want to talk about that with you to when you visited recently to Los Angeles. It was great to meet you in person. This is a rare experience for me to have met you in person first before talking to you on the podcast. And the wines you brought were fantastic. Obviously, like I mean, I don't think anybody should need to have me tell them that like this area makes world class wine. But it does. It's like stunning, beautiful stuff, but also some really interesting things. And if you want to talk about some of the people and producers and what's interesting
of
about
course.
that stuff,
Well,
that
we
would be
should
great.
touch on perhaps a little bit on some of the wines that I brought down for us to try.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I was
Uh,
trying to say
was
in
that
my
was that what
babbling.
you're trying to say?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I wanted to kind of create it like a little wine lineup of a particular region that I'm a little bit obsessed with, and it does hold a little piece of my heart. And it's the Naramata Bench and Naramata and Penticton region of the Okanagan Valley. It hugs on these like beautiful cliffs on Okanagan
Yeah,
Lake with
yeah.
like little gullies in between, and it's it's magical. There's about 600, maybe there's been some more plantings coming in. I bet you it's closer to 650 acres. It is one of the sub regions. So we have like our appellation, which is the BC VQA, and then we have our GIs or geographical indications, and then there's a handful of sub GIs to kind of just showcase in particular regions the true terroir of certain areas of the
Is
Okanagan Valley.
Are GIs just for like, non-Canadians? Is that sort of like the appellation designation? Okay.
Yeah, so we just have the one appellation umbrella, which is BC VQA, and then it kind of
Okay.
drops down. So then it would be like we have 9 wine regions in our province, and then within those 9 regions, we have 12 smaller sub-geographical indications that kind of they've been awarded these indications because they are they have a typicity and terroir that really showcases. We're still quite in our infancy in our wine industry here. Our appellation's only been around since 1990. So we're still figuring it out. But Naramata Bench was one of the first ones to get this sub GI, and
Mm.
it's being on the eastern side of Okanagan Lake. It gets that late afternoon sun. It's also on slopes, so it gets really beautiful breezes. And the wines that
Can
I brought to you came from all from that particular region.
can I
And
ask you
I don't know
something
if
really
you,
quick?
of course, no, of course you can ask away.
Do you know what the name Naramata means? Where it came from?
I
I'm just totally testing you. So I I was just reading into it because it does. I immediately zoned into it because of the sort of beauty of the vineyards and everything of that specific area, and was just reading about it and how it was sort of like a cultural center for the lake. So people would come for operas and plays and all these things at Naramata that would be hosted there. But then like whoever was the guy who was selling the tracts of land for agriculture around that area was also like a spiritualist, and so there was some indication that the name came from that. Like this guy named it with some spiritual meaning behind it, but I don't know what it was. So I just wanted to see if you did.
No, I don't. Thank you for making me sound like
This is
a
our homework.
failure.
All right,
um,
just
I
curious.
don't want I don't want to speak to anything that I can't, at least confidently say. But
Right.
you,
Well, because it
it's
sounds
like
like because Okanagan is from the indigenous people who live there, the First Nations people. That's their word, but I think
that
Naramata
is
is
correct.
not.
No,
Anyway.
I think, when I pull up the little snippet, because Google saves the day as always. A gentleman by the last name Robinson named the town Naramata, meaning the smile of Manitou, after Naramata, who was the wife of a great Sioux Indian chief.
Oh, okay. Very
So there
cool.
we go. We both learned something new.
It's a
I'm going to add that
smile.
to every wine tour visiting that region now, and I'll always think of you.
It is a smile. It is
Yeah,
a
it
town that
is a
means
happy place.
smile. Yeah, that's great. Hmm.
It's also like the vibe there is just it's it's one of the few. It might be the only Canadian. I might be mistaken, but it has the sit a slow designation. So it's kind of like slow movement, slow food, slow community. They don't have any gas stations there. There's no fast food chains or anything like that. It's a really beautiful, intricate community of people, and everybody knows everybody. It's very community involved. They are also looking at getting their dark sky certification as well.
What does that
It's
mean?
magical. So there's certain cities that can, it's for light pollution. So if you have low
Oh,
enough levels of light pollution, you can get special designations called dark sky certification. And Naramata is in the process of doing that as well.
huh. It sounds
And
so much more ominous than what it actually means.
dun dun dun,
The
dark
dark
skies and
sky.
isles of cereals.
um, so, okay, great. So now I interrupted you, but I will
That's
prompt you to
okay.
go back to now. Is Belle from that area? Belle, is that the
Bella,
name?
yeah, Bella.
Bella.
Bella Wines, yes.
Bella.
Bella Wines is from Naramata. Jay and Wendy Drysdale are the owners, and they've had the winery for 2013, so 10 years now. And they're actually a winery that only does sparkling wine.
Oh,
And I think, yeah, they just do bubbles, ancestral and traditional method. They have the most beautiful farm. They practice as much regenerative and biodynamic practices as possibly can be. They have all the animals. They have chickens. They have pigs. They trellis their vines. They have Chardonnay and Gamay on their property, about 5 acres total.
uh-huh.
And they trellis everything high enough so the chickens can roam all the time. And they have an apiary where they get their own honey that they add to the dosage of some of their wines. Like they're just they're
Mm.
also just beautiful, beautiful people. They're very involved with the local community. They have a food compost waste program. So because there's not a compost program in Naramata, so the community is invited to come and drop off their food waste at the winery, which will then go and return back to the pigs. And as a thank you at the end of each season, they will take one of the pigs because they do a classic natural cycle of feeding the pigs as well as they can and then bringing them to the l'abattoir. They'll take one of the pigs and do a slow roast in the community for all of the people as a thank you. It's they're they're amazing people like that.
That's
And
very cool.
Jay's a big advocate for helping like locals that have, because a lot of houses in the area maybe have like an acre or two of grapes planted, and Jay's always has like always helpful for helping anyone that wants to try to grow as healthy as possible. And in fact, quite often will take the grapes and process them at the winery and create a label with their names on it that will get featured in just like local restaurants in Naramata or the Naramata General Store, and just create that full connection with the community. It's yeah, it's lovely. They've been my number one fans right from the beginning of my business idea, and yeah,
Love
their
it.
sparkling wines are beautiful. I mean, we tried the Cabernet Franc
Yeah, I was just
Ancestral.
gonna say that's the I mean, it's a good place to start because it was what we started with here, and it was Cab Franc, right? I was like
Hmm.
blown away. Um, right, a Blanc de Noir, and just like I it's I don't know the way I can describe it as an experience, and when I know I have a good wine is like you open the wine and every time you smell it and taste it, it's a whole new thing. Like it just keeps changing and evolving from the moment you open the bottle, and every moment is good. It just is like this continual evolution in the glass.
A wine
It was
adventure. I call those wine
yeah.
adventures.
There you go. I love that. See, I need a name like that. How do you come up with these things? This is very.
I don't
This
know.
is why you have the job you have. I love it. um, yeah, it's like yeah, that whole bottle was an adventure. I mean, and so easy to drink. I mean, wow. Anyway, yeah, really stunning, really delicious.
His sparkling wines are just his ancestral methods and his traditional methods are just out of this world. Um, on his estate he has Gamay and Chardonnay, and he only worked with those two grapes for quite some time. But he's I don't know. I think sometimes winemakers they want to kind of they're like, can I do a Pinot Noir? Can I do a Cab Franc? What about this? What about that? And everything that they've created is just magical. He has one
Nice.
that's called PB&C, which is like a Pinot Blanc Chardonnay blend. And yeah,
I thought it was going to be peanut
and
butter and something carrots or something.
right, yeah, yeah. And it's so beautiful as well. And it's I don't, there's it's magic in a bottle, honestly. And
Lovely.
yeah, and they're lovely people. Like everything they do, it comes from a place of kindness. And they will bring, not only when they do their wine tastings, we'll bring them on farm tour and show them their compost program, and why it matters, and just little snippets of why doing the things they do matters. And it's yeah,
Yeah,
I
that's
yeah.
does let me ask you, that's so this I mean this is something that I care deeply about, which is how to communicate and convey those that message of importance to people who are just there to have a good time and drink yummy wine. You know what I mean? So how have you seen it click with anybody, and how has that worked? Like what has been effective in getting that click to happen?
I think, quite often it will be Jay or Wendy that will do kind of like the winery tours, which I think is also beautiful. Because a lot of the wineries that I visit on the tours are quite often hosted by the winery owner or winemaker or right hand person. But they'll take people to their gardens with a glass of wine, and they'll talk about the farming and the cover crops and what they're doing, and how they allow like the nature to just grow what it wants depending on what that soil needs at that time during that year. And you're overlooking like a vineyard of Chardonnay while you're tasting their Chardonnay, and you're learning about the farming practices and why it matters. And it creates this like really beautiful sense of connection of place and in the moment. And it's it's pretty beautiful when you see people just kind of have that moment of, this is might be the most amazing wine tasting experience I've ever had in my life. It's magic. I mean, there's nothing better than like connecting. Like you see it kind of like start to connect in people's heads, that like you'll see a wild, crazy, it looks chaotic vineyard, but everything that's happening there is creating this beauty, and it ends up creating this amazing thing that you're going to put into your mouth, and it's going to make your mouth happy and make you wiggle in your seat with delight. And it's a beautiful thing to witness.
Well, I mean, I feel like I witnessed it too in this, or I experienced it. Like, I mean, I'm just making that connection now in my head to that experience that I described drinking their wine. It sounds like that's what their farm is too, an adventure. You know, it sounds like that wildness that you're talking about in the farm, where there's critters and all the things, critters and bees and bugs and birds and everything roaming around, overlapping. Constantly in flux, it sounds like, and that is reflected directly in the wine. Like I tasted this living thing that continued being, it continued doing that in the bottle, in the glass.
That's really beautiful.
I mean,
It
this is
is,
what I
though.
yeah.
I will try to be very descriptive with everything else so you can have a magical moment from your seat in LA while I describe the
That's
moments and the
great.
experience of these wineries that I so love and adore.
Now, from that, I think we moved to like a Riesling. Was that right? Was that the next
We
thing that
did.
we? Yeah. So, and
Yeah.
Riesling is kind of big there. Is that right? Like, there's quite a bit of
We
Riesling.
we have a lot of it. It is definitely one of our more planted grapes. I mean, it grows really well here. I mean,
Uh-huh.
historically speaking, when we first thought that, even vinifera grapes could grow, it was tending to lean towards, we thought it was so cold here, all we could grow is aromatic, Germanic varieties. And so we
Well,
got a
when
lot of
was
good
that?
birds. When was that?
Yeah.
I mean,
When were the first
we,
plantings?
oh, well, the first plantings, okay, let's go on a little history lesson right here.
Yeah.
Yeah, history memory lane. So, I mean, we for the longest time didn't think we could grow anything other than like Labrusca. So like if we took, for example, like our very first winery was in ooh, 1923, and it was actually in
Okay.
Victoria, which is on Vancouver Island.
Right.
And it was called Growers, and it was actually wines were made out of loganberries, which are a hybrid of
Mm.
raspberry and blackberries,
Yeah.
and then eventually apples. So we got our
Oh.
first winery in the Okanagan in 1932 in Kelowna, called Kelowna, but it was spelled
Okay.
different. It was Calona, and but it was all with either apples or Labrusca varieties. So it was plonk basically, and
Okay.
then later on down the road in
You,
the
you say that like that's the only possibility if something is made with apples or Labrusca, and
no,
I
okay,
just wanna
not with
put my
apple.
foot
Okay,
down.
I want to. All right, hold that thought. So, but
Of course, it was
we
plonk.
you and I know that apples make delicious, delicious things that we put in our mouths. We know that.
Yes. Yes.
But we were talking about like, you know, Kelowna, the first winery, which is hilarious. Before they actually switched it to the name Kelowna, the name of the winery was actually called Domestic Wines and Byproducts Limited. Like that was, doesn't that sound delicious?
Yeah. Okay, so they were going for craft artisanal
Yeah.
production, it sounds like, for
Yeah,
sure.
and their wines were called like OK White, OK Red, OK Port. And like, I mean, it sounds like super mediocre, right? But obviously the OK comes from Okanagan, but like they weren't setting the bar particularly high here. So,
Got it. Okay,
and there
go
were a
on.
couple of farm, and there was a couple really key players that tried planting like Nefera very successfully, but it was at a time where consumers we weren't ready for Nefera. We weren't ready for
Yeah.
premium wine. We just wanted whatever was cheap and cheerful, and so later
Yeah, well,
on
that was
when
true everywhere, and I mean, even down
yeah,
here, for sure.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And then we had a whole bunch of, we had a little era of French hybrids that came in, and we actually still have some that happened in the 60s. And
Nice.
some
Yeah.
of our oldest vines are actually Marichal Foch.
Okay.
Um, and there is some beautiful producers making really nice Marichal. Hybrids get a little bit of hate up here, I'm not going to lie,
Mm,
but I
mm.
have had some pretty amazing hybrid, great varieties from some really amazing producers. But yeah, it's
Well, I mean, that's
uh,
not uncommon either.
I
That's
know,
not uncommon.
but I know
And
you've had like a lot of speakers that a lot of guests on board that on board. I'm not a flight attendant right now. This isn't on board.
welcome to the organic wine voyage. Um,
Let us take you on a journey to BC wine history.
well, and the reason I was asking about the timing of this is because honestly, like in the 60s and 70s and historically, the climatic knowledge that people had to draw from, probably they were right to think that you couldn't grow certain things there because it was cooler there. Like, I mean, you know, people were talking about you couldn't grow Pinot Noir in the Willamette Valley in the 60s and 70s. Like you couldn't get it ripe. It was much
Yeah.
cooler, and rainier. And now it's like the opposite. Like now it's like, well, it's too hot for Pinot Noir and dry. So we've in one lifetime that those changes have happened in these areas up there, and so yeah, I this might just be a brief moment in time where
Yes.
these things are possible, and yeah, we'll see what happens. You guys might be the new Los Angeles soon.
It sounds like it.
Right,
But
I know, really.
but yeah, so we went through a hybrid phase. We'd call it the hybrid era in the 60s. And that kind of continued on into the 70s. But sometime in the mid 70s, we uh, we started planting vinifera kind of like as like a test series, quite successfully. But as all things that are kind of in like its infancy of phases in regards to funding and cash flow, it kind of stopped after a few years. But I think like the big key was that think it was in, oh gosh, I'll have to check the year. We had like a federal and provincial um, funding project where they were paying people like $8,100 Canadian an acre to like pull out the labrusca and the hybrids and to plant vinifera. And that kind
Yeah.
of like was the beginning of like our modernized like premium quality wine industry. I think that was like 89, 90, if I
Wow. I
yeah.
see.
So we're
Yeah.
quite young. We're just in our little baby. We're still figuring it out. We still have like almost 90 different grape varieties that grow in our province. We had
Yeah.
this
Well,
conversation when we met. I was like, name a grape, we probably grow it. And then you were like, Petite Manseng. I'm like, we don't grow that.
that's right. I remember.
But because we
um,
have such a like an impressive climatic difference in like in regards to like growing degree days from the northern part of the Okanagan, say like around Kelowna or Lake Country, all the way down to Osoyoos near the border. Like we grow everything like Sangiovese, Saint So, Barbera, Dolcetto, Tiroligo. We have Zinfandel. We have Tempranillo, Mourvedre, Grenache, Mencia, Touriga, Albarino, Verdejo, Marsanne, Roussanne, Viognier, Muscat, Shannon Gruner, just to name a few. Plus all of the
yeah.
usual suspects.
Right.
Like
Right.
it's really cool because like we have all these different terroirs as well that kind of they're little like microclimate climate I almost said a really inappropriate word. Like little like micro terroirs.
Micro. Mic-
Don't,
don't do it.
so
Well,
like
so it's
Pinot
also
Noir and
because
Syrah can grow side by side together. Like it's so cool here, honestly.
well, for those of us who don't live near the 50th parallel, I think it's important to point out that I mean, first of all, you probably do get some really cold temperatures in the winter, right? Like, so you need. I mean, are people doing anything crazy to protect their vines, like put them under, geotextiles or anything like that for the
I
winter,
haven't
or
heard
is
of
it
any geotextiles as of yet, but there may have been some. The thing is that a lot of times we're pretty good from any type of like cold or winter damage because a lot of the vineyards are on slopes or on benches that are close to lakes, so the air
right?
constantly is flowing. That being
Right.
said, last November we had a really, really cold snap quite early. So it was like
Oh,
near
wow.
the beginning of November, and I think in certain areas it got down to like minus 29 for a week. So I think
Wow.
that's minus 20 Fahrenheit. And it
Oh
was,
my, yeah,
we were
yeah. I see
just,
what
yeah,
you're- yeah.
we were just harvesting like a few weeks earlier in certain regions. So, the vines didn't really have the opportunity to kind of go to sleep fully for the winter. And I think we're starting to see now, because like our vines, when I came and visited you 3 weeks ago, I think some of your grapevines were getting close to like mid to top wire, where we hadn't even had bud break yet up north.
Right.
It's but it's I think there is a little we're going to lose a little bit of grapevines because of that early cold winter snap. But for the most part, because they're on slopes and like in the valley around like Oliver Osoyoos, there are wind machines in places where there's a little bit of frost pockets. So that's common to see in the southern part of the Okanagan.
So I got you on this because I was asking about Riesling, and that Riesling
Oh,
might
I know.
be.
I squirrel all the time. I'm so
No,
sorry.
no, no.
Sorry.
I sent you on that. I sent you on that rabbit hole, which is great. I mean, the other thing I was going to point out was again, before we get back to the Riesling, was that what was I going to tell you? Oh, just to point out that what is common for you like isn't common for us a little further south, which is you might have a shortened window of growing season, like you said, your bud break starts, but then by June you have like basically 20-hour days, like you
Yeah.
like you have daylight almost day round, around the clock, so you get a lot, you make up for a lot of that lost time, is
We
that
sure do.
yeah. And
It's crazy. Our sunrise in the morning during like in end of June is like quarter to 5 in the morning, and then sunset goes down like maybe quarter to 10, like long, long days.
wow, Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
it's beautiful. I love it. Winter
yeah.
sucks, but the summers are fantastic.
Just reverse that in the winter. It's more like a lot of darkness broken up by a little bit of sun shining from the horizon down there.
Yeah.
Um, all right, so back to Riesling. One of my favorite grapes, as you know, and, and so do, do,
What was
do,
really?
what?
Is it
Didn't I
because
tell
you?
you?
But you know what? Isn't it like? But like, how often do you drink Riesling though? How often do you drink Riesling?
Oh,
Is it accessible to you like at all times?
it is not.
No.
That's true. I mean, am I a Riesling expert? No. And I mean, look, I certainly have not written Riesling off because there's so many people with amazing palates who think it's like the best, it's like God's gift to grapes is Riesling. So there's something about it that I haven't quite stumbled upon yet. I'm just waiting for that. That's my attitude now. It's not that I don't like Riesling. I'm just waiting for that moment when it convinces me it is worthy of all the attention that it gets.
When
But
you
I
come up
believe it
and
can.
visit, I'm
Okay.
gonna take you, and we're just gonna go do a Riesling day. And by golly, we're
Now,
gonna find you that
that would be awesome. That sounds like my nightmare. No, I'm kidding. Um, it's like that story of the guy that dies and goes to the afterworld, and it's this like he's a golfer, and it is the most beautiful golf course he's ever seen in his entire life. It's like a magical golf course, and his caddy is like, all right, here we go, like this is what you get, this is your reward for all your life, the balance of your life's activities. And so he tees off on like this insanely beautiful thing, and then he gets to the green and there's no hole, and he realizes there's no hole in any of these things, and then his caddy, the horns come out and he's like, welcome to hell. Anyway, like, anyway,
in a deep double voice, like welcome to
right,
hell.
right. So I'm sorry, that's a terrible analogy to you bringing me to the Okanagan to taste Riesling, but I thought it was funny. Um, and now, having
By
said
the
that, the Riesling that you brought was really delicious and beautifully made, and I can't say anything bad about it. It was wonderful.
it it is wonderful. Thank you very much. And the they're gonna have such a giggle when they hear this. So the the Riesling was also from Naramata, from a very, very, probably one of the smaller wineries in Naramata and Penticton area. They don't make a lot, called Daydreamer Wines. And it's owned by Marcus and Rachel Anselms. And Marcus is, I think, one of 9 Masters of Wine in Canada, and only one of 2 Masters of Wine in British Columbia that make wine. And he's comes from a family of winemakers in Australia originally. I think he has more vintages under his belt than he does years of age, and he has this intuition in the vineyard and the winery that has been making some like world class, age worthy, piercingly beautiful wines with Riesling and Pinot Noir and Chardonnay. He does, being Australian, in certain years, if the vintage is right, he does a sparkling Shiraz, and also has like a Syrah Viognier co-ferment, beautiful Cab Franc and Bordeaux blends. And he farms organically. Everything's done with indigenous yeast. And he has baby doll sheep roaming the vineyards, and
Mm.
they are adorably hilarious and twice the size they ever should have been. And a couple of years ago, they actually wiped out his whole block of Chardonnay.
The baby
So,
doll sheep did.
yeah, they did. They sure did.
Mm.
So, there wasn't a lot of Chardonnay a couple of years ago, but they,
But
yeah,
but
they like the really tasty ones. So they really love Chardonnay,
mm,
and they really love Syrah, apparently. But
mm.
so
And the
they're
following spring there was abundance of mutton in the freezer, I bet.
no, stop it. They are pets. They are very, very well loved,
Oh,
and
oh, okay, okay.
no,
Even
stop it.
after that, that's amazing. I
Even
do have
after
it.
that.
I have a deep appreciation for them then. That is, they are kind and wonderful sheep owners then.
Yeah. I did
for,
hear a
for
story
giving
the
them.
following season that they were trying to like get a measuring tape out, and then they were holding some like green leaves up and like to see how high the sheep could stand on their hind legs with the tape measure to like see how high
Uh-huh.
that was so that they could like re-trellis everything to like make sure
Right,
that the sheep
right, right.
couldn't reach it. So I heard it. It
Yeah,
was
they
a
don't have.
quite a sight to see.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, this is the permaculture way. It's not that you have a, Chardonnay loving sheep problem. It's that you have a trellising problem.
Yeah, exactly. And I personally like the sheep don't roam all of the vineyards. They do roam the Chardonnay block and also a Pinot Noir block. And I have had the fortunate luck of trying the Chardonnay, and it is amazing. It's so good.
Mm,
And the Pinot Noir, I haven't ever had the opportunity to try it. They keep it pretty. There's not a lot of it, and they keep it exclusive for their wine club. But
mm,
I don't. There's something about that whole cycle of like you know
yeah,
having animals in the vineyard and everything working in harmony that like it matters. You can like that
yeah.
Chardonnay is so darn good. It's so good. It's like yeah,
No,
it's
no. What's
just
what's the name of that wine again? There, I mean, the winery.
the daydreamer.
Daydreamer, right on. And
Hmm.
I will
Yeah.
say I shared that Riesling with other people who also loved it. And and you know, I for all my talking smack about Riesling or my, I mean it's beautiful. It was beautifully made. It's got a little residual sugar that balances like a beautiful acidic finish, so it just finishes clean, even though it's got a little sweetness. I mean, it was just balanced. It was precise. It was, yeah. They should be proud of that. It was, yeah, beautifully made
Yeah.
wine.
It's one of the great things about like a lot of the wineries that I take people to. Sometimes if like there's a regular, if you've ever gone wine tasting, you might go to a winery where you're like, oh, I liked one of those wines, or like maybe I liked two, or it's. I love bringing guests to wineries where they like everything they put in their mouths. They're like, oh my god, this is so good. Like Daydreamer is one of those wines, and wineries, and like Bella is one of those wineries, and it's like seeing their faces every time they're like, "This is good," and I'm like, "I know, this is why I'm bringing you here." So you're welcome, because like a lot of these, like they're small estates, and a lot of people might not ever have the opportunity of hearing about them. So that it's part of the joy of running this wine tour business is just connecting really great people with great wines.
That's great. Now, what did we drink after the Riesling? We moved on to, did we move to a red at that
We moved
point?
on to the one you really wanted to open.
The Syrah?
Yeah.
Was that it?
Yeah, that was it. Yeah. We opened up
I was like,
not only just any Syrah, but the
right.
oldest vine Syrah in Canada.
Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And
It is amazing.
how old are they?
Um, they would be, oh, you're making me do math. What have I told you about flight attendants and math?
You could you could just say,
89, 90. So,
oh,
like, I
cool.
think
That's
they're planning
good.
on
Yeah.
89 or 90. So, like 30, 33, 34 years old.
Okay.
And they
Wow.
were planted
And
in Naramata, which is like, again, we're talking about like the more like mid to northern part of our north to south our great growing region of the Okanagan Valley. I mean, everyone thought he was batshit crazy for planting Syrah there, to be honest, because no one thought it would
really,
ripen there.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. This was what was the percentage alcohol? It was good. It was, what was it? It was, I can't even remember now. Do you remember?
It was
Yeah,
13.2. Does that
yeah,
sound
yeah,
right?
yeah,
I love how I'm
yeah. It
just like,
does.
let me go down my Rolodex of alcohol
Yeah,
levels.
of
Yeah,
like the
that sounds.
bazillion wines that you have drank. No, that sounds about right. I remember, yeah, I mean, impressive, fully ripe, fully, I mean, like, yeah, it was, I thought it was even, I don't know, and I thought it was even bigger than that, but I could be wrong.
It may have been. I really did just did pull that number out of like. Am I allowed to swear? I pulled that number out of my ass.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I I I should like hold on a sec. Hold on a sec. I'm gonna cut out this
Do
space,
you
but
still have the
I'm
bottle?
I might. Hold on. Oh, I don't think. Oh, hold on. Hold on. I do not. The good news is, the two pieces of good news is that bottle has become part of the reuse stream that is part of
Get out!
U- oom
Yay! Yes.
oom.earth. This is my I won't have to read an ad because this is a true story. Like, so I'm collecting my bottles and sending them into and they are recycling, reusing them, and getting them back out into the stream without waste.
I
And
want in BC. Can they
I know,
come do
right?
a
We need one
program
in
in
every
BC?
city. Well, they're trying to
I
be
know.
national, so they might maybe soon after they become national, they'll become international. So hang in there. No, I mean, I think just we're. It's funny. I'm gonna be interviewing them just so we can talk about the problems that they're solving, so that other people can learn from that, and also so that we as an industry can start thinking about some of the ways that we can change our behavior as wine makers and wine drinkers to make this a more doable thing that we can,
Yeah.
just start. Yeah.
We
Anyway,
have
that
had some wineries that have also, I know we can get it squirreled, but like there are some wineries
right.
too that are kind of like trying to move to like the pouches as
Yeah.
well for to get away from glass. And I mean, it's it's a problem. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a problem. The end. That's
Yeah.
it. So that's a,
Yeah.
I
So,
can't.
well, I mean, so that was the one good thing was that your bottle that made it all the way down here is now going to be part of this
That's
continual
beautiful. Yay.
stream. And then the other good thing is the one bottle that I did keep is the Daydreamer 2022 Riesling. And so I have that bottle.
It's a
Um,
beautiful bottle.
it is.
And
Well,
they use a
it's my
basket
shape.
press. Yeah, yeah, and it's his only wine in his portfolio where it doesn't see any oak, obviously, because Riesling quite often, as you know, is doesn't get any oak, and it's just the purest expression of that grape. And yeah, he did knock it out of the park. I love
Yeah.
Riesling. I don't know. I think it's a BC thing too. You will find like a lot of like I don't know, wine geeks. We could sommeliers, anyone who works in the restaurant industry in the area is we're very Riesling forward, I would call it. So I
Yeah, well,
love,
that's what I'm saying. So many
yeah.
Psalms are like, yeah, the best wine in the world is German Riesling, or they just are nuts about Riesling, and
I mean, I'm not obsessed in that way. I
right.
don't
Well,
I
right,
don't
yeah.
I don't go out and crave like, oh, I really want me a Riesling, but I do love a beautiful expression of it when I have it in my mouth.
I, I also want to say that one of the things I like is that the alcohol percentages of Riesling usually hover around 10%, and I like that. I like a nice light alcohol wine, something because then you can drink more, which is always fun.
Ooh, yeah. But do you remember the residual of that? Because like there was still lots of beautiful acidity in there, but the residual sugar there was 20 grams.
Oh, really? I don't.
It
I
was
mean,
that high. Yeah,
yeah, that's. I believe that. I mean, because it didn't. It
yeah.
tastes balanced because it finished clean.
It was
I mean,
so
that's the nice
super
thing.
balanced. It was.
Yeah,
I mean, it's a beautiful, beautiful Riesling.
yeah, yeah. It really is.
You've made up for
Okay.
yourself for poo-pooing on Riesling. We can carry on now.
Back to Syrah.
Back to
Um,
Syrah.
Back to old vine Syrah, which in other parts of the world is like vines that have just come into their into
They're
expressing
prime.
terroir. Yeah,
Yeah,
like
yeah, exactly.
they're in their prime at 33.
Yes.
So
Yeah. It's a winery called Nickel Vineyard in Naramata,
how are they
and
farmed? How are these old vines farmed and cared for?
they are farmed. I mean, they're farmed organically or as close to like no synthetics, no glyphosate. They're not certified, but they do everything the right way. If I'm not
Right.
mistaken, I don't know if they're actually part of the appellation. You don't have. You said you don't have the bottle anymore.
No, sadly.
We have like a because like our BCVQA is like a membership type of appellation, and some wineries choose not to do it. I think they're one of the wineries that might be mistaken, but and I mentioned that because they're also, they're not going to be part of the appellation. They're not also the type of people that want to like pay money to be certified to prove that they're doing things the right way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But they make they're predominantly, their main wine is like a Pinot Gris. Pinot Gris is our most planted white grape in our province, and they do various, yeah, Pinot Gris.
Sorry, I was literally moments before that. I was like, "Oh, I'll give Riesling a break. Maybe I'll shit on Pinot Gris." And then
Do
you're
it,
like, "It's
do
our
it. I
most,"
dare
and I'm
you,
like,
do
"No,
it.
no, 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 I won't. I'll resist."
Oh, I can't wait till you come. Honestly, my hands are like rubbing together in like a devilish way right now. So
Oh, that's great. No, I'm very excited. I mean, I won't be excited. I like, I mean, for me, I could care less about variety at the end of the day. Honestly, I really want just beautiful farming is all I care about.
yeah. And I think,
I'll drink anything if it's farmed with sheep and sprays and
yeah,
critters running around
They
and
there are
yeah.
no sprays. The only critters running around are like the winery dog, Dan, and the cat and bull snakes during certain times of the year, which absolutely
Oh,
terrify
fun.
me. So, oh yeah, oh yeah. I remember filming, doing some like B-roll for my marketing, and like there's like grasshoppers, crickets like jumping while I was walking down the row of the vines, and I come back and Devin, who kind of works the tasting room, she's like, uh, you need to be careful. She's like, there's been a bull snake hanging around out there. And like my face just went white. And like I proceeded to like run back down in terror out of the vineyard. Yeah, yeah.
So wait,
So
are they poisonous bull snakes?
um, they have, yeah, they bite, and they're way more aggressive than rattlesnakes, which we also have in the area.
No.
But they're really good because they eat the bugs, but
Yeah.
they're a little
Well,
bit
they
of
and the
little
eat the
jerks.
voles, maybe.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
They have their part, but they're also butt ugly. They're hideous looking.
Okay.
No, they're terrifying. Anyways, back to the wine, back to the Pinot Gris. And it they do like various versions of Pinot Gris that are all stellar. They actually also have, I think, the only Saint Laurent in BC. If I don't know if it's Canada, but yeah,
Oh
they
wow.
have a few rows of Saint Laurent. They have Cab Franc, Pinot Noir, Pinot Meunier, and Syrah. And the winemaker, Matt Sherlock, is a wizard. He's also an amazing human being. He has a very successful natural wine import business as well. He has a palate that I've been told by other very well respectable winemakers that he has one of the best palates around, and can like, he travels to Europe every year, and he is known to be able to like blind taste Burgundies right down to the lieu dit, like right down to the vineyards. He's also known to be hanging around playing chess in like a flannel sweater and smelling like campfire. He's
Yeah.
like this really lovely person. And again, I've known him for years through my various hats in the wine industry, and he's kind of also just a no bullshit type of guy, and his wines are fantastic.
I just want to throw in a little correction that bull snakes are non-venomous. You're safe.
Ooh,
You would have. They might bite,
but
but
they bite. They okay.
well, I've
You,
been bit by
they,
snakes before. It's okay. It's like getting stuck with a thorn. It's not so bad.
all right, you're walking first through the vineyard then when we go for a tour.
Now rattlesnakes is a different story, but yeah, I'd play with a bull snake, no problem.
Stop it. But
So
yeah,
that what remind me the name of
you'll
the Syrah winery again?
so it's Nickel,
Nickel.
Nichol Vineyard in Naramata,
Okay.
and yeah, we have actually like Syrah is there is word on the street that Syrah might end up being our signature red grape. We do it pretty darn well in the
It was,
Okanagan,
oh
and
yeah, we should talk about it. It was delicious.
yeah.
And we decanted it, and it again was one that just kept evolving, another adventure. Lovely, lovely stuff. Oh yeah, look at that. They I'm looking at pictures now. Yep.
Are you going down memory lane?
Yeah. Well, I'm just looking at the vineyard and everything. Kind of like an old trellising style, it looks like.
Yeah, they have like an interesting trellising system where like the cordons kind of like go out and on an angle and then come back up and wrap around. To be honest, I haven't seen any other type of trellising like that in the area. Um, it looks like a lot of work, is what it looks like. Mhm.
What was next that we drank?
I think. Well, I mean, we did have a side by side with one of your Syrahs, the
Oh,
Crenshaw
yeah.
Crew
The Crenshaw Crew, the
2020
20.
Syrah,
Yeah, man. Um,
which was awesome to have two Syrahs from like such different parts of the world.
yeah, like
I'd be
how
curious to
many,
know, like,
I mean, what, like almost 2,000 miles north from south separated? No,
yeah,
1,500
yeah,
maybe? I don't know. 1,500 maybe.
yeah.
But I'll do I'll let you know. Um, but yeah, like there was a lot of remarkable similarities in a strange way. It was
hmm
different,
I
but
just like different. I loved your how like I could feel the I don't way to explain this. It's like I could feel the California heat and like but still had really beautiful acidity on it. It was and I love that. I love wine that can have like a story of more of like I don't want to say it's still fresh fruit aromatic profile, but a little bit I don't know. Yeah, it felt warm, but it felt refreshing at the same time. Does that make any sense at all?
yeah, yeah. It yes, it did. And it just had gotten to that point where I felt like it became more interesting. Like for the first couple years, which is why I never released it. I just thought it was really two-dimensional. And when we opened this bottle, it actually seemed like it aged into like this maturity that actually I would have hoped for it and didn't know to expect. But yeah, I was happy with that.
So we have to be
We're about
patient. Patient.
damn it. We're about yeah, I don't know as the crow flies, but if you take a road trip, it's about a 1,400-mile road trip from Naramata to my house.
But how many kilometers is that?
That's a great question.
I'm not
Google
gonna
doesn't tell me
know.
that. Google doesn't tell me. I'll have to do it.
2,253.
There you go.
That's that's far.
Directly south, and two
Directly
Syrahs
south, yeah.
separated north to south by 2,200 kilometers. Yeah.
But you know what's really interesting? Like where, like take for example, like our Ontario wine growing region and down in like the Niagara Peninsula, because that's also the border of Canada with the United States. It's like a full 800 kilometers further south than like our border in the town of like Osoyoos with the United States. So 500 miles, right?
Where
So
is
like
this?
like the Niagara Peninsula, so
Oh,
Ontario.
right, right, right. Yeah, yeah. So in terms of
Like,
latitude, it's much further
yeah,
south. Yeah.
because like a lot of people think that like BC, Southern Ontario wine terroirs would be very similar, being so close to the border. But yeah, it's
Drastically different.
500 drastically different. Yeah,
Yeah.
it is. And we
Yeah.
actually no, go ahead. You go.
No, no, I mean, I was just going to compare it to, New York Finger Lakes wine with, yeah, with like Barbara wine. Drastically
Yeah,
different.
yeah. But circling back to Syrah,
Yeah.
because I squirrel as I usually do. Yeah, it's there are some really beautiful expressions of that grape in the Okanagan as well as the Similkameen Valley, and we're starting even to like play around with like single vineyard Syrah, um, and also I think I forget it might have been like 2015. We brought a whole bunch of like wine judges from all over the world into the Okanagan to do kind of a wines from around the world competition where they chose two particular grapes. I think it's Syrah for red and Chardonnay for white. And they brought Syrahs from all over the world. And I think BC Syrah won 3 out of the 5 awards, I think.
I love
So
it.
it's good. If you love Syrah, come to BC, come to the Okanagan, come to Smokemean. You will not be disappointed.
Yeah, it was everything you wanted in Syrah. I'll put it that way. Like, and
Hmm.
nothing
Yeah,
you didn't want.
yeah,
How's that? Um,
yes,
uh, I didn't mean to prompt you to talk about my wine. I apologize. I meant, what was the next Canadian wine we had? I should have asked it that way.
yeah. Well, I think we kind of like moved on to like chilled toast wine and opened up the Bella Chinato.
The
That's
Belicinato,
sparkling.
sparkling
Yeah,
Chinato, which was
yes.
crazy.
Which
I
might
mean,
be the very first sparkling Chinato in the world. It might be.
yeah, it might be.
It might be.
Unless, there was an accident in Piemonte at some point where they re-fermented and bottled by accident or something.
Yeah.
But it was well, I'll put it this way. I haven't had many chinatos, and I have never had a sparkling chinato because probably this was the first one ever made. But it was wonderful. What a great experience. I mean,
Oh,
like,
it's great.
yeah, like, yeah, why not? I mean, I think more
It felt like
vermouths
a
could be.
hug. Yeah.
N-
And it was
Oh,
local
nice.
vermouth. And like he worked at the
Yeah,
winery last season too. And like it's also just so connected as well, which I think is really beautiful. But yeah, it's and like just to have that little bit of the fizz on the palate with all of the spices and aromatics, it
yeah.
was just like it was a party in the mouth.
Yeah, and you'd think, I mean, the idea of like sparkling is to sort of add a little magic to a really bland and sour base wine, originally. So you'd think that like it could be overpowering with all the stuff that goes on in it, but actually I thought it lifted it. It actually sort
Yeah.
of did a really nice thing to it.
Yeah.
And do you know where the ingredients for that Chinato came from, or what they're doing to infuse the wine?
I not off the top of my head. I know
Okay,
they do
no,
list it on the
yeah,
on their website, but
okay,
because it is all locally sourced. The company, the vermouth company, is Marl Vermouth, and I'm just trying to see if it lists it because I remember reading it somewhere. So I'm going to keep on talking and try to see if I can find it, but I can't. So
well,
I
I,
might
I
have to get
can
back to you.
I can I can interject that at some point we had a Arkansas muscadine wine that I think we all liked, but it was like kind of just dessert. Like, we were like, well, we're done now. But yeah, and no alcohol listed on the bottle. Strangely, like, I don't know how they got away with
That was
label approval on that one, but
that
yeah,
might have been like the best giggles of like the whole evening reading verbatim what was written on the label and
that's right.
how
That's right.
like it was like there was like air quotes around and like mountain vineyards or something bizarre like that. We're like, why is it in quotes? Um, and it tasted like candy. Like you wanted to not like it, but you kind of liked it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, there was a lot to like about it. Like, man, I
It
don't
was
know
with
why they're.
muscadine, or was that? I'm
Yeah,
trying to remember. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
yeah.
So it's forever burnt in my brain like your wedding anniversary. But
um,
yeah. I mean, like, I'd be curious to know what the alcohol percentage is, because like, how bizarre that it actually isn't labeled on the bottle, right?
right.
It's weird. It's weird.
Well, and a big thanks to Charles Loves Trees and the Back to Nature Boys. Those are handles on Instagram for that bottle. They brought that from a road trip across the U.S. They
Cool.
brought it. They
It
brought
was
it
so great.
straight
I'm so
from
happy
Arkansas.
you opened it up. I mean, like I presented you maybe your first sparkling chinato, and you gave me the opportunity to try my very first wine from Arkansas. So thank you.
Nice, nice. Had you had a muscadine before?
No, no,
All
not at
right.
all.
Yeah. AKA
It,
Skippernog.
okay. Well, that was a really great like way to like give me the opportunity to find out what was in the Chinato. So like the
Uh-huh.
wine base, which I think is actually really interesting as well, is that it's Cab Franc,
Okay.
and it's done in like Solera.
Okay.
So
Nice.
kind of to mimic like the old world kind of like Nebbiolo juice.
Okay.
And then the herbs that were used was ooh, is it cinchona bark or cinchona
Ah,
bark?
good question. Good question. No idea.
Yeah. Um, and organic botanicals sourced from a place called Green Muse Herbs. Uh, yeah,
Oh.
and also with local honey from Naramata Bench,
Oh.
and also like the distill like and maple leaf spirits, which is also local as well. It's like
Oh,
everything
distill
is
it. Yeah,
from the
yeah.
place. It's like not only is it like something different and unique, but it's like it's literally from the region.
Right.
Maybe they're onto something. Maybe this could be something. This could be something.
Yeah, well, I mean, they should, I'm a big fan of like when you make it local to use a local name rather than Chinato, especially sparkling Chinato sounds like it's no longer Chinato at all anyway. So maybe you guys just need to come up with your own local name for that, that
I know.
is that you own, not referential of anything other than Okanagan.
And who knows? I mean, like maybe once like the appellation picks up on it, maybe they might be sending their lawyers down the way because wine can be very protective on occasion, as we know.
Yeah, 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 definitely. With
I
now
only
was that
say that because did you hear about the Champagne Association like destroying a whole bunch of like Miller High Life in Belgium recently because it says champagne of beers.
no way? Are you
So
serious?
yeah, no, you didn't hear that story?
Oh, that's a great story. Did you
But
hear
first
about
off,
how
like, why would
did
the
you hear about how
country?
Putin decided he was just gonna claim the name Champagne? Did you know about that?
No, I no.
Yeah, he was like, yeah, we're not going to abide by your restrictions on the name Champagne, and so they just started producing a bunch of Russian champagne. And I think Champagne just had to bend over and take it because like 40% of Champagne's market is Moscow.
It
So
is, yeah.
yeah. And they're like, "Oh, okay." Anyway, they destroy Miller the champagne and beers, but they'll let Putin
Yeah.
make his own champagne.
But sidebar, why would Belgium be importing Miller High Life though? Isn't it like the beer?
That is a
Like, you know what
good
I mean? Like,
question.
I
Like,
want
how did that?
answers to that.
Well, we're stepping on everybody's toes. The Belgian, the French, and the Russians, but not the Canadians. Damn it.
Not the Canadians. But and then like this is the thing too, because like I don't like I'm not sure like your we're organic wine podcast reaches out, but like we have really great wine, but we also have like every type of like outdoor activity from like mountain biking, rock climbing, hiking, every type of like water activity from like water skiing, wakeboarding, stand up paddleboarding, kayaking. Um, we have a great food scene. We have a great coffee scene. Amazing. We have amazing beers. So if you're like traveling with somebody who's more into beer than into wine, we have we got you. We got you. We have really great beer here, and just like there's nothing better than like going and wine touring in the daytime and like taking in all the views and then finishing the afternoon and just running into the lake and going for a swim and hanging out on the beach and
Mm.
just watching the sunset with like your favorite bottle of wine or canned wine. Canned wine's really big here right now as well, which is amazing for public beaches. I shouldn't say don't bring glass to the beach, friends. I take that
Oh
back.
yeah.
Nobody does that here. Don't do that. So
Well, you'd like drink in the car maybe, and then just go enjoy your time at the beach, sans bottle, if you really
yeah,
need that. Yeah, if you can't get a can, just there
yeah.
are ways
Our
around
lakes,
it.
yeah, our lakes are amazing. Like there, it's and then like for example in Penticton, there's a canal that connects because there's Okanagan Lake and it finishes on one side of the Penticton, and then there's a canal that connects to the next lake, which is Skaha Lake, and you can rent it or you can if you don't own like a floaty, and you start from one end of the canal and you just like float through the canal in the summertime with your favorite friends and your favorite drinks. And it's like the most glorious thing ever. And then you
Oh,
just
that
get off
sounds
at the
nice.
stairs at the end, and there's a bus that brings you back up to your car.
Is there like a lock that has to get filled up for you and your little floaty to get to the next section? Because that would be awesome if they like had to activate a lock for you to
No,
trans
but there is like
trans.
you need to get off before it actually like there is a point where it's like you need to be off your floaty and onto land now, or else it does continue on, and I don't think it would be very much fun. So, and then because it'll just keep shooting you out into Skaha Lake, so
Got it. Got it. That's fun.
yes,
Um,
and like, and then like, it's yeah, it's such a beautiful place to vacation. And then in the wintertime, we have local ski mountains. Like it's a year-round place to come and visit. And we're friendly. We're still welcoming here. We are. Canadians were really friendly up here. So, walking down the street and like everyone says good morning to everyone, and it's just there's a vibe here that's pretty special. So,
Listen to you. It sounds too good to be true. I got to tell you, Jess. So you do a bunch of sustainability or local and thoughtful things with your tour in addition to just the wineries that you go to too, right?
It yeah, and it's kind of like the whole premise of the idea of farm to glass. I really want to highlight local small businesses from start to finish in a sustainable way as well. So my wine tours are kind of fully all inclusive. I take a lot of pride of knowing what people want before they even know that they want it. I love doing that stuff. But like I have a snack land, I call it, which is like local snacks from a small business in Naramata. And then my lunches are provided, and I'll set up like this beautiful picnic, and everything is done with like linens and plates. There's no plastic, no paper, no nothing. And lunch is catered from like another small business from the region. And then also, everybody gets at the end of a tour like a little hyper local goodie bag, just as a thank you, because people can choose to do wine touring so many other ways, but they've chosen to do it in this way. And I like to thank them for it. So it'll have like a little care package of little spices or like a card, everything that's made also by female women owned small businesses all throughout the Okanagan. And then lastly, there's a community give back program where $10 from each guest will go back to like a charity or foundation of the region that they visited. So it could help. So your wine tour could help put like fresh organic produce on a family needs table, or it could help with youth mental health services, or help with like the women's shelter. And they're all three causes that mean a lot to me personally. So it's like creating this experience where you taste really great wine that's done in a really positive way, and you're directly living like leaving a positive impact on the region that you visit. And it's like I love saying that out loud. I think it's really magical, and I'm going to say magical again
No, that is really great.
because I don't
I
explain it out loud like that a lot, and then like the more I talk about it, I'm like, oh, I love it. I'm really proud of what I've
yeah,
created,
that's great. Yeah, no,
and like
there's a lot to it beyond
yeah,
just like the surface, like the obvious stuff, I should say.
yeah, and when we're
I'm sorry. I just relate because it's like I do the same. Like as a business owner, you put like especially if you care, if you come at it from this ecological perspective, which is how I would sort of encapsulate what you're doing. Like very thoughtful about the things that you're supporting and the things that you aren't supporting, and like you're thinking about waste, you're thinking about how to reduce, and all these things that come into operating in the world, you have to think about in at every level in the operation of your business. And then you do that as you make those decisions, and then they just become decisions that you've made, and now you're that's your norm, like that's your normal operations, that's your mo. And then
yes,
when you look back, you're like, oh wait, like I made a lot of really good decisions about how to run this company.
you're like, hold on, let me pat myself on the back.
Right, right. Because a lot does go into it. I mean, you agonize over like every little thing because it matters. Yeah, and it matters to not just to the people that take your tours, but to the world and the people of the community that your tours interact with. I mean, that your tours
Exactly.
showcase.
Ugh, you
Um,
say it so eloquently well.
well, you also made me think, um, going back to the idea of like how a farm, the way a farm is farmed should like when a wine can reflect the way the farm is farmed, especially when it's farmed in an ecological way, that's a really special and magical thing, and that's honestly like what I look for, and it's made me, once you started telling me more about Bella Winery, it's made me more love them because they gave me that experience. I didn't even realize, I mean, I tasted it in the glass, divorced from the land. But then when you told me about the way that they're farming, it is that thing where it's, you use the word messy. And I think that's what got me because I actually wrote a whole blog post about like messiness is next to godliness, just to turn that whole idea of cleanliness is next to godliness on its head.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because what people see as messy is actually this, overlapping, interconnected aliveness where you have an ecosystem of support and biodiversity and collaboration and it's all on top of each other and intermingling and like brimming with life, and so it looks messy, but it I think a better way of thinking about it is like this, like an ecological journey, and when that, I mean, the fact that they could show that in the wine is really special, and I think I mean that's what wine means to me. Like that's what I seek for, that's what I want wine to be. I want it to start with that journey in the land, and then if you can keep that journey going all the way into the glass with every sip and every sniff that I take, it's like that's where maybe your magical
Exactly.
word
Yes.
comes from.
And that's
um,
where like this is like because I don't make wine, I don't grow grapes, I don't, but what I can offer to people is like the opportunity to come and experience how it's done in this beautiful ecological way. And it's pretty magical when you see kind of like the light bulb turn on in their brains and like they start to make that connection. I think, I've had a case where, I kind of curate all of the wineries based on the list, but these are private wine tours. So if people want to visit a winery that's not on my list, I mean, it's their day. I'll happily do it, but I will kind of put it right in the middle of the day. So like there will be a couple in the morning that I've chosen, and then we'll go to the winery that they wanted to go to, either because they've loved it before, they used to be wine club members, they want to go back, and then I'll finish off with like one or two wineries afterwards. And, more often than not, they'll be like, oh, we don't like these wines anymore. And I was like, yeah, they don't farm the way that the other wineries farm, And it's like, there's something, when they're putting everything into the ground or anything into the wine, when they're making it, it kind of loses like that life. And then, I think we talked about it in person before, but it's like, how does the wine look? How does it smell? How does it taste? How does it feel? But then how does it make you feel? It's just,
mm.
and when wine is made in like a healthy ecological way, there's like that, it's like a sixth sense. It's like a feeling there. And I don't know any other way to explain it, but to see the guests just kind of be like, everything starts to click together. That's what I feel like I can offer with how, farm to glass runs. And yeah, it's beautiful seeing people kind of connect the dots. So, and I like being the person that kind of like shepherds them on that direction. So, yeah.
You also advertise cooled storage. Do you bring a cooler with ice in it for wine
No,
purchases? What do you do?
no. The
Is it
Tesla is like
proprietary
this.
secret?
Yes, but I'm going to tell you what it is right now. So,
Okay. All right.
uh, Tesla has like these amazing bells and whistles, and that even when we're not in the vehicle, the AC can be set to like whatever it wants to be.
Oh, you're
Um,
crazy.
so
Wow.
like if it can get up to like say in like the Black Sage Bench around Oliver, it's hot. It's super hot and just gets blasted by heat in the summertime. It could get up to like 42 outside temperature. So imagine
Ooh,
inside a car.
yeah.
And it'll stay like a breezy 19 degrees Celsius inside the car at all times. So
Nice.
if we're out and I have guests that are into, I do quite often get people that are really into like buying and collecting wine on the tours. Um, you know, it's going to get hot in the Okanagan, but your wine won't, kind of thing. So it
Right,
safely
right.
is going to be stored throughout the day. Yeah, it's awesome. Or I can put it on like dog mode, and then like a little screen pops up and it says, "My owner will be back right away. It's 19 degrees in here," kind of thing. So
That's awesome.
it's
Dog mode.
important. I have friends that like
Yeah.
they accidentally left a case of really nice wine one August weekend uh,
Uh,
in the Okanagan, and they came back to like every single cork just being pushed out in the wine room. And
yeah.
these were nice bottles, so
Yeah.
I bet you they'll never do that again.
That's so sad. That's heartbreaking. That's really
Yeah,
cool. I mean,
yeah.
I guess the only downside is like you run down the battery and then you're pushing the Tesla back to Vancouver. Is that what you're like coasting down the hills,
You would be
pushing
pushing the
uphill?
Tesla back.
Yeah.
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 No, the
Your
range is
wine will
amazing.
be in great shape though.
I mean, the range on the Tesla is fantastic, and like to like we have, and it really is. I've never even come close to like being worried about it ever running out, ever,
Yeah.
ever.
Yeah.
So,
That's great.
but you're gonna jinx me now and watch that happen. So,
That's right. Right. Jess would just like to clarify that even though she lives in Vancouver and operates her tour in the Okanagan, she does not provide transportation between those two locations. She will give you a tour once you're in the Okanagan, but don't rely on her for a lift from Vancouver. Okay. Um, well, and I think that we didn't say, but should say that you actually take people to these places that do this good farming. That's a focus of your tours, and is
yeah, in
to
fact,
sort of give
it's a
support to the
requirement.
local,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
to the people that are
So
doing
it's
great
kind of
farming.
like the focus it being, wineries that are doing it, that are farming the right way. So I'm looking for like practicing organic, regenerative, biodynamic, um, and sustainable. I've really like no Roundup, no glyphosate is a mandatory. Like, it's not going to
Mm,
happen. So, and also it's wineries that are owned by people. We do have, you know, our history of our wine industry is very much commercial, very large, and owned by corporations. And a lot of they make such mass production, and they do have beautiful tasting rooms, but their bread and butter is like liquor stores and restaurants, and where they're producing 100,000 cases a year, kind of thing. I want to connect people to people
yeah,
and that do the wine and make like maybe 2,000 cases a year, or 5,000 cases is a lot, and like maybe
yeah,
like max the larger ones do 10 cases, which 10 cases is a lot. For a lot of wineries are just like mid-range size,
yeah,
and
yeah. You mean
it's
10,000 cases or 10 cases?
yeah, 10 10,000 cases. Did I say 10? Sorry.
Twice.
Did it
So
just shows that like
10
once I
cases is a
think
lot.
10 cases is so much. It just goes to show that like as way more comfortable as I've gotten over the course of this recording, I'm just still nervous as fuck speaking to you right now.
Oh,
And
I
I
had to
can't
give you
help it.
shit
Like it's
for it.
something, it's like, yeah, I know. It's like it's so funny because like I love speaking and I love talking to people, but I always like over the years working in service and stuff, I always have like this nervous undertone. And I can't like I know it's there and I can't shake it. It's just I don't know, maybe it's endearing and maybe it's adorable, but it drives me bananas.
Well, and we didn't really even talk about your story, but you've been, a flight attendant, a luxury yacht, cruise line um,
Yeah. No cruise line,
person.
just yachts. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, yachts, all kinds
Because
of stuff
we
like that.
don't like cruise ship cruise ship and yachting's two very different, and
Right.
will be
Yes.
very, very insulted. And by the way, for anyone who's watched Below Deck, it is very on point. The drama is very much real. Have you ever watched that show?
No, not yet, but now I'm
Don't,
curious.
please don't.
Okay. Is it like the Real Housewives of the yacht kind of
Well,
thing?
I mean, imagine just putting like 12 to like 18 people on a boat where in your tight quarters and you're working like 16 hours a day, 7 days a week for sometimes up to 6 weeks in a row. And you're not always going to get along all the time.
Yeah.
And you're exhausted. And then next thing you know, you get like one day off and you've saved up boatloads literally of money and you just go and like party
Go
like an
nuts.
asshole and then wash, rinse, repeat and do it all over again. Like it's that's literally the life, honestly. So I
Huh.
couldn't do it.
You might have
I
just
didn't
sold a
love it.
bunch of people on that. Like you've just described the dream of many a young person, perhaps. I
Hey, I
don't know.
mean, like it paid off all my debt. Honestly, it was a great like 2.5, 3 years. But I couldn't say I loved my last crew. I would have stayed with my last boat forever until the end of time because my crew was amazing. But I actually got into corporate flying. So that's actually how I got into wine. Was I was a personal flight attendant for a billionaire on his private jet, and that meant I got to take care of his wine collection, which was an impressive wine collection
Wow.
that I knew nothing about. I knew
Right.
wine, like the basics, but like he had like 82 Bordeaux and Grand Cru Chablis and super tough like he would drink like casually like a Sassicaia or like he loves Chateauneuf du Pape, all
Yeah.
old world. I would try to
Yeah.
buy him like top of the line New World when you were traveling in South America. He wouldn't even try it. Like very, very classic. But it was shameful to say that like I still remember I was serving wine and I honestly didn't know like Chablis was Chardonnay. Like that's just what
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't know. And but my boss was amazing. He actually paid for my first wine course, which was the W set level 1. And then that the job working for him was amazing, but it ended up ending when he moved back to Switzerland. But I kind of got the wine bug. He put the wine bug in me.
Yeah.
It was sometimes when I was because sometimes I'd just be traveling him solo and he wouldn't finish the bottle of his beautiful, delicious wine. So then we'd get to drink the rest of it. So
Yeah.
it was like the first opportunity to try some really magical things, and I got hooked. And I never went to college or university after high school because I moved to Mexico when I was quite young. So I was like early 30s, and I was at the point where my brain was craving knowledge. And I was like, okay, well, I'm going to lean into this and start doing some wine courses. And I went and did my WSET 3 right away. I decided I was like, I've been around wines. I'm just going to skip level 2 and go to level 3. And I remember I went to my first day of the class and we're all doing introductions and the instructor is going around and she comes over to me after the intros and she was like, so you skipped level 2? And I was like, yep. And she was like, and you don't work in the restaurant industry? I'm like, nope. And she was like, good luck. And then like continued on. Yeah. And I like went home and I basically cried all that night long. I was like, what am I doing? What am I getting myself into? And then I woke up the next morning, like seriously, because it was like over 2 weekends with a 2 week break in between. Like it was intense. It was like, I was like, what did I just get myself into? But,
Yeah.
I kind of lit that fire under my ass and I studied for like 5 to 10 hours a day. And I ended up passing, actually. I
Yeah.
think I like a challenge. I think someone tells me I can't do it. I think I don't know. I come from a line of very stubborn women. So I think those were probably in the moment the right words that I needed to hear. And then it just progressed and I did all the like French, Italian, Spanish wine scholar programs. I have a master level in Champagne. And I chose Champagne because I was super fascinated by the history. And then I kind of like plateaued out of that and didn't want to do anything that was going to be like a 2 year program. And then the pandemic happened and kind of like the whole world changed in March of 2020, which I still can't believe is over 3 years ago. And at the time, I'd been working at a private wine shop. I'd also been successfully opening, like running a pop-up natural wine bar, which obviously closed down because of the pandemic as well. And the wine shop that I worked at, it was super tiny and super narrow. And we still, remember in the beginning, we didn't know how bad it was. And there was a lot of fear. And I wanted to still work in the wine industry, but I wanted to be outdoors. So in Vancouver, about an hour drive in the Fraser Valley, there's actually a handful of wineries there. So I decided to get a job at the tasting room that summer so I could be outdoors and just talk about wine. And I realized, and I'm going to swear again because it matters this much to me, that everyone tasting wine is so fucking happy. They are. It's like it's true though. It really
That's
is.
great.
Like,
Yeah.
you know, as a flight attendant, we don't like, I meet amazing people on a daily basis when I'm flying, but there are some really horrible people out there too. Like, it's
Yeah.
especially
Yeah.
like, it's gotten, we
It's gotten
record this
worse.
my last flight. A passenger told me to fuck off just on my last flight.
Why?
I don't,
Doesn't matter.
I can't get,
Doesn't matter.
yeah.
Yeah. It
But
doesn't
like,
matter.
for totally uncalled for,
Yeah.
like, just you catch people in like the worst versions of themselves sometimes on flights, and it takes a beating, honestly. So I was working in the tasting room and being outside, and there was Pinot Noir and Chardonnay around, and everyone was always in a good mood, and I was like, I want to be around the happy, like I like
Yeah.
this. Like, I'm like, I feed off of people's energy. So it's like, I'm the type of person, if I walk into a room and everyone's in a great mood, I immediately get to that level. Like, it gives like a fuel to me that I absolutely love. It also, on the other end, I can walk in and like, someone's really upset, I'll probably start crying right away. That's usually how I roll. But I was like, I I could do this. It's like, I could do wine tours. I was like, I worked in tourism. I love being around people and I love talking about wine. And then kind of I had the aha moment where I was like, I'm going to start my wine tour business, but there is no like eco wine sustainable tourism tour in BC. And I was like, that's my hook. It's very saturated. There's a bajillion wine tour companies. There really is. There's tons. And I know bajillion's not an actual number, I don't think, but there's tons. It's a
Yeah.
lot. It's many, So I was like, well, I'm going to take an eco-friendly approach and a sustainable approach where everything's hyper local. It's all farmed in a right way. And then I'm going to take all my experience from like taking care of like the one percenters, and I'm going to mix it into like this beautiful baby of a wine tour product where you get to taste amazing wine, and I get to pamper the shit out of you because after the past couple of years, we all deserve to be treated and spoiled. And yeah, I love taking people on a tour and just like blowing them out of the water of expectation of like everything that they get from like start to finish. I love creating magical moments. I love it. It gives me so much joy.
Mm, sounds great. I love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Well, thanks.
So,
Thanks for sharing a little slice of some of those tours that you do. Is there anything that we missed in terms of producers or, highlights from the area that you really want to call out? Or should we
oh,
just
I mean,
save that for the tour?
there are so many. I mean, obviously, I brought you a little sliver of like some of my favorites. And uh, I mean, I could I work with about 30 to 40 different wineries in the Okanagan Valley and Snoqualmie Valley that are doing it the right way. So I don't need to name any of them off, but I just, for anyone who's listening, and if you're into that type of wine and natural wine, there is a beautiful movement up here. And there's really, really great people doing really, really great things. And you can create this like vacation experience where it's not just about the wine, it's about creating moments with like the people that you love doing also non-wine things, if that makes sense. It's
Yeah.
painfully beautiful here. It really is. So yeah,
So if you
it
like
really.
pain and beauty, this is your place.
Well,
um,
I,
I was
I
just
like,
kidding.
if I use this expression all the time, it's like when you have something that's so flavorful, whether it be like a food or if it's a wine, and it's so flavorful and it's so good. I call it flavor pain. Like it's so good it
Mm,
hurts. You know what I
mm.
mean? And
Yeah,
that's
I think
like
that.
the beauty of the region is it's painfully beautiful. It's stunning. You have to see it.
No, I hear you. I mean, I think there's something in the concept of beauty that is sort of belied by the simple term beauty, or that we don't quite capture in the way that we usually think of beauty in English. But I think other languages capture it where it's, there's something ephemeral about it. There's something about like
Yeah.
this thing that is, yeah, that is transient and passing, and you glimpse it, and it, contained within this idea is this thing that, the idea of ephemerality and our mortality and everything else that goes with it, because it
Hmm.
moves you in that way. Yeah. Anyway, that's what I think of if I'm not making jokes about painful beauty. Um, so you're at farmtoglasswinetours.ca if anybody
Correct.
wants to check
Yes.
you out. Anything else any other places that people should go to connect?
Um, as in like social media
Sure. Yeah.
or like
Anything
other
you want.
resources for our wine industry
Anything you think
or
is
for
important.
tourism. Anything that I think is important. I mean, all things are important, but a great resource is Wines of BC. Has a lot of information in regards to our region and all of our wineries that are part of our amazing appellation. Um, and then, if you're thinking about coming and visiting the region as a tourist, because you can make a really beautiful trip out of visiting the West Coast, like where I live, or up in the Okanagan. HelloBC.com is a really great resource for that as well. And I know we didn't touch on it that much too, but because like the Okanagan really is like the heart of our wine country. It's almost what 84, 85% of all of our grapes grown, but the Similkameen Valley is making some really stunning, amazing wines, and it's beautiful there. The Similkameen
Mm.
Valley is like piercingly tall, high mountains,
Ooh.
and then this incredibly steep valley. It has various micro terroirs. Um, the soil there has a little bit higher like calcium content. There seems to be a minerality that's way more expressive in the wines from this region.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's it's the organic capital of Canada in regards to agriculture, and it's
Where is that?
small. So if you were, say, if we did like, it's west of the Okanagan Valley, but in the southern part. So say if you're traveling from north to
Oh.
south, you go Kelowna, and then Peachland, Summerland, Caledon, and then in between Caledon and Okanagan Falls, there's a little like side highway that branches off, and it goes through the town of Oyala, and then it's honestly the drive is just stunning. You kind of like start to come in, and then all you see are like these very tall, steep mountains, and you're just like, this is beautiful. And then you start seeing all the fruit stands and all the markets out, and there's a handful of wineries there, um, predominantly all organic, and it's magical. Yeah, it's because like the Okanagan Valley has we're hugged by mountains, but Smeltman Valley is like hugged by mountains. Like it's breathtaking. And there's still snow at the top right now. They're quite tall. It gets very hot there, but because of these mountains, it also gets really cool in the evenings. And it's yeah, they joke. I my joke is that it's the only time it's ever not windy there is when the wind is blowing from all four directions at the same time, which means it's really it's really great for farming. Though it's the
Yeah.
pest. Yeah, it's yeah. Go like
Oh, I
make a
see.
extra effort to go check out the Similkameen Valley as well.
Um, is that Olalla? Is that the word that you were
Hmm.
saying? Oyala?
Yeah, yeah. Are you
Okay.
looking at a map right now?
I am. I was just
Yeah.
trying to find it. Beautiful. Great. Right down there. Okay, I see it. It's all coming it's all coming to be now in my head. Beautiful. Well, thank you. Yeah,
Yeah.
that
No,
sounds
thank
magic.
you. I would love to do like a word count of like how many times I may have used the word magic or magical here, but it's because it's because it is. It
Yeah.
really is, you know. I say that with like the most conviction possible. It's I compare it to like, you know, I used to work doing whale watching tours as well, and you could go out every day and you could see whales every day, but every time you see a whale, you get so incredibly excited because it's just such a thing of beauty. And that's how I feel every time I'm taking people and driving through the Okanagan and Similkameen. It's just, I do it all the time, but it's just every time it feels like the first time, if that makes sense. You know, it's just, you have
Mm,
to see it. You have to see it to believe it.
that sounds fantastic.
So you have to come and I'll give you all
Yeah.
the Pinot Gris and all the Riesling that you can possibly drink.
Can't wait. Well, thank you, Jess. We'll talk soon, for sure.
Yeah, of course, definitely.
Thanks so much for listening. I hope you had as much fun meeting Jess as I did. But if Canada is somewhere you already live or just visited, let me tell you about Catavino Tours, who does what Jess does, but in Portugal. For all you Canadians wanting to go on vacation anywhere but Canada, check out catavinotours.com/OWP, and your wine adventure to Portugal can help support this podcast and be an ecologically thoughtful experience as well as a fun and delicious one. That's catavinotours.com/OWP. Thanks for your support.